My neighbor stood in my driveway holding the broken head of my security camera and said, "Looks like your cheap equipment failed," while water from the pipe he had cut was still flooding under my foundation. His shoes were wet. His hands were muddy. And 20 minutes earlier, my phone had saved a video of him kneeling beside that exact pipe with bolt cutters. 3 months before that, I thought Gary Whitcomb was the kind of neighbor people brag about having. I'm Daniel Mercer, 41, a commercial architect in Raleigh, North Carolina. In 2021, I bought a brick ranch on Maple Hollow Lane for $412,000, mostly because of the backyard, 2 old oaks, a stone patio, and a cedar fence I built myself with my father's old tools. That fence cost me $8,600 in materials and 4 weekends of sweat, sawdust, and aching shoulders. Gary was 58, retired from a regional bank, and lived next door in a pale yellow house with black shutters. His wife, Patricia, worked part-time at a garden center, and they had the cleanest lawn on the block, edged so sharply it looked drawn with a ruler. The first week I moved in, Gary brought over a plate of lemon cookies wrapped in plastic and said, "Around here, we look out for each other." He helped me carry a heavy bookcase inside. I lent him my ladder. On Saturdays, we'd talk over the fence while the smell of cut grass and charcoal drifted through the street. He told me about which trash company was best, which plumber was fair, and which neighbors complained about everything. When my mother visited from Wilmington, he brought her tomatoes from his garden. I honestly liked him. The only awkward thing was the strip between our driveways. My lot had an extra 8 feet on his side, clearly marked on the survey. Gary joked about it constantly. "You know," he'd say, squinting at the property line, "that little piece should have been mine." I'd laugh. "Take it up with whoever drew the maps in 1978. He smiled, but his eyes never did. The first sign came on February 6th, a cold Monday morning when my mailbox was leaning at a strange angle. The metal post had been scraped, and the red flag hung loose like a broken finger. I figured a delivery truck clipped it. Gary appeared in his robe, holding a steaming mug, and called across the lawn. Wind was rough last night. There hadn't been wind. 2 weeks later, I found 3 deep gouges in my new cedar fence facing his yard, fresh pale wood showing through the stain. When I ran my fingertips over the marks, splinters caught my skin. Gary shrugged when I asked if he'd seen anything. "Probably squirrels," he said. "Squirrels with a pry bar?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. He chuckled too loudly. "You city architects see patterns in everything." Then on March 15th, my water bill jumped from $74 to $318. The utility company said there had to be a continuous leak. I walked the yard at dusk, shoes sinking slightly into wet soil near the fence line, smelling damp earth where there shouldn't have been any. Gary watched me from his kitchen window. When I looked up, the curtain snapped shut. The moment I found out, the world got very quiet, like all the air had been pulled out of Maple Hollow Lane. It was April 2nd, 6:43 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand with a motion alert from the little camera I'd mounted under my back porch after the fence damage. I expected a raccoon or a branch moving in the rain. Instead, the screen showed Gary Whitcomb in a navy jacket and baseball cap, stepping through the side gate into my yard. My mouth went dry. I sat up so fast the room tilted. On the video, Gary moved with careful little steps, like he'd done it before. He crouched beside the copper irrigation line that ran along my foundation, pulled something from his coat, and started cutting. The sound came through tinny but clear, metal biting metal, then a sharp pop. Water sprayed into the gray morning. I threw on jeans and ran outside barefoot, the cold concrete stinging my feet. Rain misted my face. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "Gary!" I shouted. He turned, eyes wide for half a second, then relaxed into that neighborly smile. "What are you doing?" I said. He held up a broken camera head in one muddy hand. "Found this hanging loose. Looks like your cheap equipment failed. My pipe is cut." He looked past me at the water pooling near the foundation. "Well, don't look at me. I have video." His smile twitched. "Of what?" "Me helping." I held up my phone, my hand shaking so hard the screen blurred. "Of you cutting it." For the first time since I'd known him, Gary said nothing. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. The cut pipe wasn't random. My plumber, a calm guy named Luis Moreno, came out that same afternoon and knelt by the foundation with a flashlight between his teeth. The air smelled like mud and wet insulation. He followed the line, frowned, and said, "Daniel, someone didn't just cut this. Someone loosened 2 joints further back. This was meant to leak slowly first." He showed me the fittings. Tool marks, fresh scratches, a tiny wedge of blue plastic shoved behind the valve to keep it from closing all the way. Then I checked everything. The mailbox post had not been hit by a truck. It had been pushed from the yard side, leaving heel marks in the mulch. The fence gouges lined up perfectly with Gary's old metal rake, the one I'd borrowed once and returned. And the soggy patch near the side yard had started under a small trench hidden beneath pine straw, leading from Gary's downspout toward my foundation. My stomach knotted so hard I had to sit on the patio step. The first twist came from Patricia. She walked over at dusk, pale and tight-lipped, carrying a manila envelope. "I shouldn't be involved," she whispered, glancing back at her house. "But you need to see this." Inside were copies of emails Gary had sent to a builder named Nolan Price. The subject line read, "Mercer side strip pressure." In one email, Gary wrote, "If his drainage problems get expensive enough, he may sell the side strip cheap." My hands went cold. He wasn't just damaging my property out of spite. He was trying to force me to sell him part of my land so he could widen his driveway for a luxury garage and private rental suite. That week hollowed me out. I slept maybe 2 hours at a time, waking at 3:12 or 3:47 with my ceiling fan ticking above me like a clock counting down to another disaster. Every drip in the house made my chest tighten. The smell of wet drywall near the laundry room turned my stomach. I called in sick twice, which I never do. I stood in the kitchen eating toast I couldn't taste, staring out at Gary's perfect lawn. He waved once from his driveway like nothing had happened. My fist clenched around my coffee mug until my knuckles ached. My insurance adjuster estimated the water damage, plumbing repair, soil remediation, fence repair, and foundation inspection at $27,940. The cedar fence alone needed 6 panels replaced. My emergency savings took the first hit before anything was approved. My brother Marcus drove up from Charlotte that Friday. He found me in the garage, sitting on an overturned paint bucket, staring at my muddy work boots. "You look like you've been carrying a refrigerator uphill," he said. I tried to laugh, but it came out flat. He smiled at me, "Marcus." While my house was flooding, Marcus leaned against the workbench and said, "Then stop treating him like a neighbor. Treat him like evidence." That sentence flipped a switch in me. The turning point came the next morning when Gary posted in the Maple Hollow homeowners group, "Reminder to maintain your property. Neglect affects everyone's home values." There was a photo attached. My muddy side yard. My damaged fence. My house. Heat rose from my chest into my face. He had damaged my property, denied it, then used the mess as public proof that I was the problem. My hands stopped shaking. My breathing slowed. I took a screenshot. Then another. Then I said out loud to my empty kitchen, "Okay, Gary, we'll do this properly. No yelling. No threats. No late-night arguments over the fence." I was going to bury him in facts. First, I called an attorney, Evelyn Park, who specialized in property disputes. Her office downtown smelled like coffee, leather chairs, and printer toner. She watched the camera footage twice without blinking. "He's confident," she said. "He thinks I'll just file an insurance claim and move on." Evelyn tapped her pen on the desk. "Then we let him stay confident." She told me to preserve everything. I uploaded the videos to 3 cloud accounts, saved the HOA post, photographed every footprint, scratch, trench, and tool mark with date stamps. Luis wrote a formal report explaining the tampering. I hired a licensed surveyor, Marcia Bell, to restake the property line with orange flags bright enough to see from space. Then we set the trap. I installed 2 additional cameras, one visible and one hidden inside a fake birdhouse Marcus built, angled directly at the side yard. I put a small lock on my gate, but left the old latch looking unchanged. Evelyn sent Gary a polite letter requesting reimbursement for damages and asking him to preserve any footage from his own cameras. We knew he wouldn't. Patricia quietly gave me the second twist. Gary had filed preliminary plans with the city using my 8-foot strip as if he already owned it. He had forged my initials on a neighborhood compatibility form. When Evelyn saw the copy, she smiled for the first time. "Oh," she said softly. Now he didn't just make a civil problem. He made a very expensive problem. The execution took 18 days and nearly broke my patience. Gary ignored Evelyn's letter. Then he sent me a text at 9:14 p.m. on April 18th. "You're making yourself look unstable. Drop this before people start asking questions." I forwarded it to Evelyn and didn't reply. On April 21st, the hidden camera caught him at 5:32 a.m. walking along the property line with a small shovel, trying to pull up Marsh's survey stakes. The visible camera had mysteriously been turned toward the ground, but the birdhouse camera captured his face, his gray gloves, even the little grunt he made while yanking the stake free. The audio picked up him muttering, "Ridiculous little strip." I watched the footage at my desk with my tie half knotted, the smell of burnt toast still in the kitchen. My pulse raced, but this time it wasn't fear. It was focus. Evelyn filed a police report, a civil complaint, and a notice with the city planning office challenging Gary's forged form. My insurance company's fraud investigator, a woman named Denise Alvarez, joined in because Gary's actions affected the claim. The city froze his permit application. The near miss came when Gary tried to play victim first. He called an emergency HOA meeting for May 3rd and put ongoing property dispute and neighborhood safety on the agenda. As vice president of the HOA, he expected to control the room. Evelyn told me, "Let him talk. People like Gary bring their own rope. We just make sure the microphone is on." I walked into that HOA meeting with a folder so thick it barely closed. The clubhouse smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet. 27 neighbors sat in folding chairs, whispering while rain tapped against the windows. Gary stood at the front in a crisp blue shirt, smiling like a man about to win an award. Patricia sat in the back, eyes down, hands folded tight in her lap. Gary began with a sorrowful sigh. "I hate that it's come to this, but Daniel has accused me of things I would never do. I've tried to be patient." A few heads turned toward me. My throat felt dry, but I stood. HOA President Linda Cho said, "Daniel, you'll have a chance to respond." Gary lifted a hand. "He's been filming my family, harassing me, damaging the harmony of this street." I heard a chair creak. Someone whispered, "Really?" Then Evelyn, who had come as my legal representative, stepped to the front. "Mr. Whitcomb," she said, voice calm as glass, "before you continue, are you stating publicly that you never entered Mr. Mercer's property without permission?" Gary smiled wider. "Correct. And you never tampered with his irrigation line?" "Absolutely not." "And you never removed survey stakes from his property?" His jaw tightened. "No." Evelyn nodded to me. I connected my laptop to the clubhouse TV. For one horrible second, the screen stayed black. My heart slammed against my ribs. Gary's smile returned. Then the video loaded. There he was, larger than life, kneeling beside my foundation with bolt cutters. The room went silent except for the rain. Someone gasped, "Gary." The footage played on. The cut, the spray of water, his hand holding my camera. Then the second video, Gary pulling survey stakes at dawn. Then screenshots of his HOA post. Then the forged planning document with my fake initials circled in red. Finally, the email to Nolan Price. If his drainage problems get expensive enough, he may sell. Gary's face drained from pink to gray. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "That's edited," he said. Evelyn clicked to the metadata page. Original files. Timestamped. Preserved. Also reviewed by the insurance investigator. Linda Cho stood up slowly. "Gary, did you use HOA access to obtain Daniel's property records?" He swallowed. "This is being taken out of context." Patricia rose from the back. Her voice trembled but carried. "No, Gary, it is not." Every face turned. She held up her own folder. "He told me Daniel was being unreasonable. He told me the strip was basically ours. But I saw the emails. I saw the gloves in the garage. I'm sorry, Daniel." Gary snapped. "Patricia, sit down." She didn't. That was the moment he lost the room. The consequences came fast and clean. The HOA board removed Gary as vice president that night by unanimous vote. Linda sent a neighborhood-wide email the next morning stating that Gary had misused HOA procedures and that my property complaints were substantiated. The same people who had side-eyed my muddy yard started stopping by with apologies, casseroles, and offers to help replace fence boards. The police issued charges related to property damage and trespassing. The city planning office referred the forged document for review, and Gary's permit application was permanently denied. His builder, Nolan Price, terminated their agreement and sent Evelyn a letter saying he had relied on inaccurate information provided by Gary. In August, we settled the civil case 2 days before court. Gary paid $41,500, repairs, insurance deductible, attorney fees, survey costs, and compensation for the damaged cedar fence and landscaping. Evelyn also secured a recorded boundary agreement and a permanent no-contact provision. If Gary crossed onto my property again, the consequences would be immediate. By September, Patricia had moved in with her sister and Carrie. Gary put the yellow house up for sale in October. The sign sat crooked in his perfect lawn, and every time I passed it, I felt the tight knot in my chest loosen another inch. I rebuilt that side yard better than before. New cedar panels, a French drain, river stone edging, and low garden lights that make the fence glow warm gold at night. Marcus came back one weekend, and we worked until our shirts stuck to our backs and the air smelled like fresh-cut wood. When we finished, he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Looks like victory." He was right. The best part is that I didn't have to become cruel to win. I didn't trespass. I didn't shout over the fence. I didn't match Gary's lies with my own. I documented, waited, and let the truth walk into the room wearing his muddy shoes. Last spring, I hosted the block cookout in my backyard. Linda brought pasta salad. Luis brought his wife. Patricia even sent a card that said, "Thank you for proving the truth mattered." I stood under the oak trees, looking at the bright orange sunset over my repaired fence, and realized Gary had tried to make me feel powerless on my own land.